it all started with a misspent youth of going to see as much cinema as I possibly could. I always loved going to the cinema. Every Saturday I would go to see whatever was on, and also went to the theatre a great deal. And for some inexplicable reason, I remembered the names of actors. Don't ask me why. And it was a standing joke in my family that if anybody was ever on the television, they'd say, "Oh, who's that?" And I'd go, "Oh, it's so-and-so." I always knew who it was, but had no idea that there was a job where you could use any of this. So I went off to university. I did an arts degree. And when I left, I, like lots of young people, drifted to London. And every day I would sit and scan the newspaper for jobs. And one day I saw a one-line advert saying, "Theatre seeks secretary," and a telephone number. So I rang it up, and it was the Royal Court Theatre in Sloane Square, which is a very famous, very wonderful theatre where lots and lots of new young playwrights have started out and lots of wonderful young actors have started their careers. So I went along, and to my horror was told that I was not suitable because I had no experience. But as I was leaving, just about to close the door, the theatre manager said, "Oh, but the casting director's looking for somebody." So I said, "Okay, I'll go and see them." Having never heard the words casting director in my life before, didn't know what it meant or what it entailed or anything about it. But the minute I sat down and started talking to this wonderful woman, Gillian Diamond, who was then the casting director there, I suddenly thought, hang on a minute, I think I can do this job, because I knew who actors were. And I didn't understand that obviously people don't just turn up out of the blue. Somebody has to seek them out and organise it. So suddenly their fate had drawn me to this place, and it was the first job I got, and that was it. The die was cast, and some years later became a casting director. And then it all came to a bit of a shuddering halt. And again, I wasn't quite sure what to do, and I thought I needed to go back and retrain in something. I didn't know what, because I'd never learnt to type, for instance. And in those days, girls had to be secretaries. They had to know how to type. So I'd applied to go back to college and do a typing course. In the meantime, I was working in the box office of a very small theatre above a pub. And a wonderful, wonderful casting director called Mary Selway used to come to this particular place quite frequently. And every time she came, she'd go, "What the hell are you doing here?" I said, "Well, this is the only job I can find at the moment." And so again, by fate, fortune, or whatever, she rang me up one day and said, "I'm working on a film. The production secretary has suddenly got appendicitis. Can you come and fill in for her?" So immediately jumped on my bicycle, rushed off to this film studio and sat in the office there, and suddenly a whole new world had opened to me, the world of film, which I thought was even more exciting. And so then the girl got better, she came back, and then Mary Selway said to me, "Well, do you know what, why don't you come and work with me?" So that's what I did, and I worked with her for about 4 years, I suppose, and then by which time I'd sort of felt ready to do my own thing, and so eventually I was offered my own first film, and that was in 1980. Well, I've had probably the greatest good fortune in being able to use my expertise around the world. And I guess what is the same everywhere is that you could recognize talent wherever it may be. Either people have got it or they haven't. Either people feel comfortable in front of the camera, they can just be themselves in front of the camera. And I think that that's a universal. It doesn't matter whether I'm in the middle of the Atacama Desert, as I found myself a few years ago, or in the center of Paris. you're looking for the same thing. You're looking for that ease, that comfort, that ability to perform naturally in front of the camera. Well, in the case of professional actors as opposed to non-professional, I mean, when I was, for instance, in the Atacama Desert, I was looking at real people who were playing small parts, but they needed to be natural in front of the camera. That's a very different thing to then casting professional actors who are coming in for probably leading roles in things. For those actors, I would say the best thing for them is to always be fully prepared, to do as much research as they possibly can beforehand, to whether it's relevant or not, to find out as much about the director and or the writer, just to feel comfortable in that they have some knowledge of what it is that they're dealing with. If they've been sent a script, then they should know it backwards, forwards, inside out, so that they are at ease with the script. Because if they're stumbling over it, then they're automatically going to be ill at ease and nervous. So to know it absolutely perfectly, but not to be so fixed in it that they can't adapt to it. Because the way they interpret it may be very different from the way in which the director, or in most cases it'll be the casting director that they meet first, she may have been given instruction by the director of how he wants it played, and that may be different to how they'd imagined it in their mind. So they have to be very open to suggestion. They have to be able to repeat it several times in different ways, and I think the more preparation they have for that, the better. But also to come to a meeting feeling as an equal, to feel that they are as much in control of the situation as the person they're sitting opposite, to not feel as if they're being judged, which of course they are, but that they have something to bring, that they haven't been called to the meeting by chance, I shouldn't think. They're there for a reason. They're there because the casting director has seen something in them that she thinks is valuable and that she would hope to draw out of them during the course of the audition. Each director will get a different response or will respond differently to actors. So you could do the same casting session for 10 different directors and they'd probably all pick a different person. It's completely in their hands. That is probably what the most frustrating thing for any actor is. The decision of the director is very unpredictable. He may decide that he likes one person because they remind him of his wife or something as, frivolous as that, if you like, or one would hope that they would see the talent that is there. That's the main thing, obviously, that the actor has to have talent. But beyond that, they have little control, the actor, on whether they're selected or not. So they can only do their best. They can only prepare as much as they can. They can only interpret it in the way that they interpret it. And then after that, it's up to the director to decide. But there are so many things that they can do to help themselves by being pleasant and not being aggressive, which I have seen on several occasions. There's no point in antagonizing anybody. You need to be seen to be someone who is a team player, someone who is going to get along with everybody. Because a film is a huge collaboration. You're joining a huge family. Not only do you appear in front of the camera, which is the most important thing, but you have to get along with the costume department, the makeup department. You have to turn up on time. You have to be someone who is reliable. It's not good enough just to be a good actor, I don't think. Although obviously that is very important, but it's being part of the creative process and being a willing and happy partner in that. Well, again, so lucky as I am, I travelled all over the place looking for new and different actors, which is what is always the great challenge for me, and also the pleasure one hopes for the audience is that there's always a huge anticipation for who these new people are going to be. And it's always great fun to find somebody new. And the girl, or one of the two girls in the film, is a lovely French actress called Berenice Marlowe. And indeed, I found her, first of all, a colleague, a French colleague, Stéphane Funkinos, had sent me a little video of hers, her French agent had sent me, and she also sent me. So on one day, I received 3 applications all begging me to meet her. And since I'd already made, I'd made all my appointments in Paris, in fact, but I thought, well, we'll give it a go. And she was quite extraordinary, I have to say. She gave the best audition of anyone I've seen for a very long time, although she was incredibly nervous, but the nerves acted in her favour because she was meant to be nervous in the scene, so it worked out well for her. So we found her in Paris. We found a fantastic villain in Stockholm, with our great friend Tusse Lander, who did the casting for me there. There's quite a long story about the would he, won't he be in the film, but eventually he is, and everyone's thrilled to bits with him. And he's called Ula Rapace, and he's a fantastic young actor. And gosh, who else? We have the lovely Naomi Harris from London, who's playing the second girl's part. And then we've picked up people from all over the place, from Berlin, from, gosh, where else? An actor called Michael Pink, who is not a known actor, well, not a known actor outside Germany, I don't think. I think he's probably known in Germany. So it's been fantastic fun, I must say, and I've really, really enjoyed it. And I think it's going to be a really good film, so let's hope. Gosh, well, there are several things I don't like about it. Again, because of the progress, I guess you would call it, of the internet, as soon as a film is announced, the world knows about it. And I mean literally the world. So I get bombarded with phone calls, with emails, with show reels from everywhere. And I think it's something about the James Bond films in particular that people feel that it's almost like real life. And so I get the most extraordinary things sent to me by people who are not actors, but think for some reason that they can be in a James Bond film, and also because it's a fantasy of so many people's to be in a James Bond film. So they think, aha, at last I can send my photos of me standing in my underwear in the kitchen. I mean, literally the weirdest things you could ever imagine. So that's one thing. And it's not, I suppose, that I hate it, because some of it is just so extraordinary you can hardly believe your eyes, but there's just so much of it, and it clogs everything else up. I can't get on with the job because I'm pushing so many people away or trying to somehow deal with it. And so that's one thing, is that I would much prefer to be able to just get on with the job quietly on my own, and to, read the script, make my assessments, do my list, check availabilities. But I can't do that anymore because there's just too much extra stuff going on around. So that's one thing. The other thing I hate is all the paperwork. Yes, paperwork. Well, try as I might to have a paper-free office, it's impossible. Even though now people send you stuff over the internet, I still have piles and piles and piles of paper on my desk. I also have to produce so much, things like deal memos that have to be absolutely accurate to the last little dot, and the contracts, which is something which I guess people who don't really understand what we do don't know that we have to do all of that. So there's a lot of administration. And again, partly to do with the internet, there's so much information that has to come to and fro. But what worries me is that people don't talk to each other anymore. And you can't put a tone of voice on an email, and sometimes people misinterpret what you say. So I wish people talk to each other more. But at the same time, of course, it's an incredibly useful resource as well, but it sort of slightly dehumanizes things, and I regret that. I think it's much better that we talk to each other more. Well, not naming any names, of course, but no, obviously I haven't got on with everybody. It helps enormously if you do, I have to say, that you feel that you're not fighting against something. You always want to feel that the director has trust in you, and if he has no trust in you, then the whole basis of your relationship is gone. But occasionally one has struggled through working with people who I have not liked one little piece, but you get over it. And also it's because it's all for the final product. You want the film to be good, so it doesn't matter what you think of the director, as long as oh, I don't mean that really. You have to it helps enormously to like the director, but you can still do the job if you don't, but it's not so much fun, because what you want is a good result at the end of it, which is, you know, why we do the job, because we like being part of that creative process, although a lot of people don't kind of quite understand what part we play in it, but we do play an incredibly important part, but we're the sort of the shadow in the wings, if you like. People don't really know what it is we do, and they don't understand quite the contribution we make. And sometimes, because we start at the very beginning of the process, by the time the film is finished and open, we've been forgotten about, and we're rather the unsung heroes, I would say. Well, I'm actually quite surprised that things haven't changed faster, given that video cameras are so fantastic now, and given that we have the internet and YouTube is the greatest form of democracy that anyone could ever have dreamt up, I'm still quite surprised that we are still sort of in the grip, if you like, of the very old traditions. And it constantly surprises me, however difficult it is to make films are still made. And films are still being made in the old-fashioned style, with a very big, cumbersome camera, with big, cumbersome lights. And, you know, the dogma system that emerged in Denmark in the 90s, I'm surprised that that didn't go further, that it didn't have a bigger influence, really. But I think it's had something of an influence in the kind of handheld camera and the slightly fuzzy, out of focus look, and shooting into a window, which nobody would ever have done in the past. But you know, the creative spirit will always be there, whatever is going on, whatever horror is happening in politics or disaster throughout the world. I think it is part of human nature to be creative in whatever field people choose to be in. But I think that probably in the next 20 years, things will have changed dramatically. I think, as you were saying, cinemas are closing down. I don't think people feel the need to have that communal experience anymore. I think it's a great shame, because I love that sensation of going into a place that's dark and warm, and you comfortably sit back, and it's a genuine experience to be sitting around other people having the similar emotions to them. It's a kind of mass hysteria, if you like, in a very kind of moderated form. But sitting and watching the same film at home on your sofa on the TV is very different. And also, you know, people watching little short films on their computers is a very different experience. So it is going to change, very, very much so. And I can't quite imagine how it's going to change, but it will have changed a lot. But I'm surprised it hasn't changed faster.
Mm-hmm.